The state of Israel might be exploring plans to relocate the Palestinians to South Sudan in what will be one of the most dangerous examples of ethnic cleansing in modern history. I'm Cameron Kasky from the FY Pod channel at Bulwark. Please subscribe and all that. And I'm joined today by my friend Adam Mockler to talk about this. So Adam, as we just discussed, the Associated Press reported that Israel is exploring the relocation of Palestinians to South Sudan. Now, Al Jazeera, who has recently lost several journalists in the state of Israel's campaign to kill the journalists reporting on what's happening in Gaza, has reported that South Sudan is strongly denying these reports. So we're not entirely sure what's actually going on. But after all of this time, with people arguing about what to call Israel's war campaign in Gaza, I can't imagine it can be argued that a relocation of these people to South Sudan is straight up ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, the article from the AP is insane. Let me read a few quotes from this. So it says, Israel is in discussions with South Sudan about the possibility of resettling Palestinians. It then says, the territory has been left in ruins by its 22-month offensive against Hamas. That framing isn't even, like, on October 8th, after October 7th, when Israel wanted to take care of Hamas, there was a different argument being made. How can you justify a 22-month offensive, not against Hamas, but against the people of Palestine? The article then says that Trump and Netanyahu are calling this voluntary migration. Donald Trump referred to it as a voluntary migration of the population. Again, that term is a complete red herring. There is no voluntary migration. People want their own national identity. The Palestinians want their own national identity with borders. And what Israel's doing is, number one, violating a lot of laws with sovereignty, but number two, genuinely ethnic cleansing a group of people, taking them out of their territory, moving them. And Trump has been floating this ever since he got into office. He held that one presser with Netanyahu where he said, we're going to relocate everyone in Palestine. There's no way to do that.
Well, yeah, he was also posting like AI videos of a big fancy Trump tower in Gaza. And, you know, people in his circle were calling Gaza a valuable beachfront property. So needless to say, peace is not what Donald Trump and his whole coalition, including Benjamin Netanyahu, are interested in here. They're interested in, and also not freeing the hostages. I mean, the hostages' families have all come together to rally against what Netanyahu and the IDF have been doing, because this only puts the hostages' lives at risk. I mean, everybody's talking about how they're buying into this propaganda that the Palestinian people aren't actually starving, and the only people that are starving are the hostages. As a matter of fact, Dante, please throw up an image of this on screen. There was a billboard in New York City with a starving hostage on it saying that the only people starving in Gaza are the hostages. Well, if you don't want the hostages to starve, which they should not do, they should be freed and sent back to their families, allow aid and food in. And the IDF has gone so far as to confirm the fact that reports that Hamas are the people stealing the aid, they don't have any proof. There's no evidence of that. So the IDF's messaging and Bibi Netanyahu's messaging are going against each other right now. And you'd think that they would have a more coordinated PR defense than that. But listen, South Sudan, relocating to South Sudan is ethnic cleansing. One of Hitler's plans for what to do with the Jews was send them all to Madagascar. You can look it up. It's called the Madagascar Plan. So sending an ethnic group to a country in Africa, it's not like this is unheard of. The thing is, when we've heard of it from Adolf Hitler. South Sudan has recently lost over 400,000 people in a years-long civil war. And it has also taken in 8 individuals the Trump sent over who were kidnapped by ICE. Now, South Sudanese civil society leader, a gentleman named Edmund, I don't know if he's a good guy or not, so maybe gentleman is a little bit of an overstatement. Let's say an individual named Edmund told the Associated Press that the country, quote, should not become a dumping ground for people, and it should not accept to take people as negotiating chips to improve relations. Now, South Sudan is cash-strapped, and they need allies. They need powerful friends. So what the civil society leader is saying and what South Sudan's actions taking in people who have been kidnapped by ICE in the United States of America are saying, they're going against each other. And that's why, despite Al Jazeera's reports that South Sudan is denying any talks with the state of Israel about relocating the Palestinians, I don't necessarily know if we should believe them.
Yeah, and I just want to go back. There is no such thing as voluntary migration. That is a narrative that is very, very dangerous. When it's very 1984-esque or like Orwellian, trying to tell people to cover their eyes and say us relocating 2 million people forcefully is a voluntary migration. It's very messed up.
Yeah, and Netanyahu is obviously framing this as some heroic thing, the way that he constantly does, framing this as some sort of selfless effort by the IDF to snipe Palestinians who are in line to get food and water in order to rescue the hostages with the most moral army in the world. Netanyahu, who is unfortunately very charismatic and compelling as a speaker, I'm no fan of his. I cover how much I think he's one of the most devastatingly evil world leaders in the world all the time. But, you can't pretend that he isn't a pretty compelling speaker. He came out and said, I think that the right thing to do, even according to the laws of war as I know them, is to allow the population to leave. And then you go in with all your might against the enemy who remains there. Netanyahu said Tuesday in an interview with I-24, an Israeli TV station. He did not make a reference to South Sudan. But Israel has floated similar resettlement proposals with other African nations. And I think one important thing for us to note is that Egypt strongly opposes this. They have always been against proposals to resettle Palestinians out of Gaza. Joe Slavic, the founder of a U.S. lobbying firm working with South Sudan, said he was briefed by South Sudanese officials on the talks. He said an Israeli delegation plans to visit the country to look into the possibility of setting up camps for Palestinians there. No known date has been set for the visit. Israel did not immediately respond to a request for confirmation of this visit, but Slavic, whatever the fuck, said Israel would likely pay for makeshift camps. Camps is a very charged word here, especially since in all of Israel's efforts to get away with what the United States is letting them get away with, they love to evoke the Holocaust. And yet we are talking about building camps, and we are talking about relocating and doing voluntary migration to places in Africa. Now, Sudan is in the middle of a genocidal civil war of its own right now, where mass sexual violence is being used and warring generals are killing countless people for control. So the thought that voluntarily migrating all these people to liberate them from Hamas to South Sudan is anything other than a violent attempt to basically just exterminate these people off the face of the planet Earth. I don't understand how exactly this can be framed as a positive thing. But again, who is Netanyahu's greatest ally in all of this? Donald Trump. So I'm wondering what Trump's messaging is going to be around this, especially since the state of Israel's actions are incredibly unpopular across the board, including with a lot of people in his voter base.
Yeah, I like how they're like, we're not doing anything wrong. We're just concentrating people into literal camps is what we're calling them. When it comes to Donald Trump, there's a few things that come to mind. First of all, he doesn't even have to have a coherent position anymore. All the time, his dogmatic supporters will follow him. When it comes to the wars, I think that's a little bit different because he has simultaneously failed to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. In fact, he's made it worse while also allowing Netanyahu to gain more territory and kill more civilians in Gaza and in Palestine as a whole. So he's completely failing on that front, and there's no way to spin that whatsoever. And the crazy part is Netanyahu continues to kind of drag him and carry him. When we struck Iran, Donald Trump did that reactively after Netanyahu did it. When Donald Trump floats these plans to relocate people that, like you said, Egypt rejects, he's doing that to please Netanyahu. He's doing that in a reactive way. It might have even been Netanyahu's idea originally. So it's disgusting to see somebody run as anti-war and then in a 1984 type way ask you to cover your eyes while he allows the war to keep going, calls ethnic cleansing voluntary migration, and just gaslights people en masse. So yeah, the neighboring countries around Palestine are saying, listen, we want to recognize Palestine as a state, and we do. And in doing so, the people of Palestine, the citizens, get their own borders. They get their own sovereignty. You can't forcefully relocate anywhere. I hope people in Israel, I hope the citizens at some point can stand up to this administration, the Netanyahu regime. But it's hard.
Every poll that comes out says
they support
that
it.
The vast majority, close to 80% in most of the polls you'll see, of Israelis completely support.
The problem there then becomes you can see similar polling numbers with Hamas on the other side. So we have a region where I'm not both sizing it, but both sides are very, very charged. And due to the power imbalance, Israel just decides to ethnically cleanse.
Most of the countries that have also been supportive of Israel since October 7th, Canada, France, Australia, They're now taking steps to recognize a Palestinian state. And Donald Trump is so marching to the beat of Netanyahu's drum and just doing whatever he says that he is threatening tariffs on Canada and threatening these countries who are recognizing a Palestinian state. So you get a lot of very confusing messaging here because a lot of the both sides people in this situation talk about the two-state solution being the goal. And then suddenly once a country will recognize a Palestinian state, that immediately goes away. Pete Buttigieg was asked on Pod Save America if he would recognize a Palestinian state. And he gave the most embarrassing word salad answer where he was like, Israel is, one of those situations where you need to put your arm around somebody and have a chat with them and talk about the future and talk about the future of their relationship with the international world. He didn't say yes. And if you're going to be the Democratic nominee in 2028, you're going to have to say yes, or you are not going to be getting the support that you think you're going to get by both sides in it. The United States is sick of politicians who dance around things, and they are sick of politicians who will not take moral stances on issues like this. Last thing I want to cover before we go is a lot of the Netanyahu apologist and IDF apologist crowds. One of the things that they say about the mass murder of Palestinians is that if Egypt is so opposed to this, why aren't they letting them in? Why aren't they letting Israel build camps for Palestinians in Egypt? Why do they have such intense borders built up to keep Palestinian people out? Egypt right now is in a terrible spot. They have a giant population of people who are young and unemployed. They do not have work opportunities, and they are facing what could be an Arab Spring-like revolution. The country of Egypt is built around the Nile. If you look at the population centers, it is everybody in the Nile River Delta, and then any population you see anywhere else in the country is going to be little areas of lights and green and whatever you see on the maps that indicate population around the Nile River basin. The people who are able to farm there, and even less of those jobs are available by the year. And one of the things that's happening is Ethiopia has built something called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that is building a giant Rhode Island-sized reservoir of water from the blue or white, I forget, Nile, in order to power many, many millions of homes and areas in Ethiopia and bring them into the modern age. But what that's doing is that is slowing the flow of water into the Nile and making it harder for farmers in Egypt to get jobs. So it is driving these very, very heavy unemployment rates in that country and leading to some of the biggest problems that they've had in a very, very long time since the last time their government was overthrown. So it's not like Egypt is sitting on a pile of gold right now that they're keeping away from the Palestinian people. They are facing an existential crisis to their state because at the end of the day, as we face the climate crisis getting even worse, water is much harder to find. There's a lot less of it, and it's drying up everywhere, and Egypt is the Nile. So that's just a random fun fact for everybody, and we're going to have to see how this all goes. But needless to say, the excuses that Netanyahu's making for his government actions are nobody's buying them. Only Donald Trump is enabling them. With Bulwark and with Midas, I'm Cam Kasky. Adam Mockler is Adam Mockler. We'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you all. Thank you, Cameron.